Okay, I'm going to try to explain the most recent Supreme Court disastrous procedural win they gave to the Trump administration for the umpteenth time. And really quickly, for background, what they've been doing in the procedural wins they've given to Trump, I've been using the analogy of a football game. So the lawsuit, so Donald Trump life, he issues something, executive order that's unconstitutional, unlawful, violates Congress. He exceeds his authority. He impounds of funds that are already allocated by the Congress, and the people, the beneficiary of the funds who got their rights infringed upon, file a lawsuit. That is equivalent in football terms of a flag on the play. There's a penalty. And the referee, which is the district court judges, would then rule and say, yes, this is unlawful, violates the law, violates ultravirus. Yes, you can't do this. They would issue what's called a preliminary injunction or a temporary restraining order, essentially putting the parties whole temporarily based on the fact that they're going to be irreparably harmed. The balance of interest, like their harm is more than the government's harm or whoever is doing this, which is the government in this case. And they're most likely going to win. So they give them that win, and the case continues. They continue to do the regular process because, with Cates, you got exchange of documents, you got hearings, and eventually there's a trial, then there's a final decision. It's a long process. So during the process, they stop to make you whole. The Trump administration, because they don't like that, would appeal to the Court of Appeals, and most likely they lose because a lot of these cases, a lot of things they're doing are done to liberals or Democrats, to the people in the culture wars, so trans community, blacks, diversity people, schools, universities, bodies that the conservatives have determined are the enemies, migrants, immigrants of conservatives. So they're fighting a culture war. They're not helping your food prices get down. He's actually exacerbating the prices of food with his stupid trade war. He's not helping you with your food prices, with your housing costs, the child care costs. He's not doing anything. They're passing a bill that's actually going to increase your costs on the backs of you in order to give the rich people a tax cut. So he's actually doing nothing to help your life. Instead, he's just punishing people that he told you were responsible for why your life sucks. That's what we have. But I digress. Get my I digress merch at jjlegal.com. Support me and support my work here. Anyway, so what the Supreme Court has done is they have told the referees and overruled the referees' call on the play on the field, and said, you know what, we're going to let the game continue, which essentially Trump allowed them to continue to do their lawless, dangerous agenda. While the case continues. So we're going to let, at the end of the case, at some point, if he loses and loses again, then we will, then we'll decide. And most likely it's going to come back to them again, ultimately, because he's attacking the cultural wars that Donald Trump is waged against migrants, immigrants, people of color, Hispanic, international students, the education community, so colleges and universities, the trans communities, diverse people, black people, Hispanic people, all those folks that they have decided are the enemies of the conservatives. They're attacking their jurisdictions are usually in the liberal areas. So it's usually First Circuit over in the Northeast. They're in California, which is the Ninth Circuit. They're in the DC Circuit and the Fourth Circuit, or New York and things like that. And sometimes I forget what circuit that is, Fifth, I think. Anyway, that's where they're going after people in Colorado. That's where the blue states people. That's where they're attacking. The Court of Appeals in those jurisdictions are mostly liberal, left-leaning people. So when they appeal to Court of Appeals, for the most part, they lose. So that's how come it makes it up to the Supreme Court. And mind you, during the Biden administration, the conservative people who wanted to fight the Biden agenda, they ran to the Fifth Circuit. They ran to Texas. I think there's a Fifth Circuit. They ran to the red state, the Eighth Circuit, where they're going to get more conservative Court of Appeals levels. Anyway, so I digress again. Back to the point. So when it goes back to the Supreme Court, he most likely may lose, but what they're letting them say is continue. So the latest continue is they tried to appeal so what happened was they blocked grants, stopped the grants, two types of grants. There's the one type of grant, just like research grant, helping sickle cell. Sickle cell is something that black people get. My sister has sickle cell, and funding for sickle cell research because it's for diversity or it's black and they hate black people and Hispanic people. I feel comfortable saying that because the actions of the administration shows that they really do not like us. He's trying to attack anything related to slavery. They're saying stuff about they feel there is a rage and there's a war against the people of America, but part of that rage and war is a racist war against people of color. Donald Trump has said so many times before, he's racist and this administration, you voted for him, you voted for a racist, especially even if you're black or brown or a person of color, you voted for him, you voted for someone who really doesn't like you. And all their policies and everything they're doing, they're attacking white Cubans, they're attacking white Venezuelans, white Nicaraguans. So it does not matter, you're not white, there's a white nationalist, white supremacist administration. End of story, point blank. I digress again. So we're going to get to the Supreme Court decision. So there's two different types of grants. There's a grants related to research. And they're like, because it mentions diversity, we're going to block it. So they blocked like $8 billion in research that just has the words diversity in it. Then they also blocked like grant programs to help diversity. The way in Department of Education, for example, they had a program to help underserved communities, which includes like low-income communities in urban areas and rural communities. So white people, you're catching strays. So the fact that those grants, when they say we're going to find teachers, we have funding to help get teachers so that we can match and pair. The fact that they're helping underserved minority communities and they hate minorities, they block those grants. So you white rural people, you caught the strays. They block those too. And the Supreme Court let them continue that because they're like, it's his agenda. He has a racist agenda. Let him continue his racist agenda until the case gets done, which is so stupid. So anything that's related to helping people, diversity, like diverse nurses and staff, those programs, the Supreme Court is letting them stay. So that's what's on appeal. The General Accounting Office, the General Accounting Office has already determined that when the Donald Trump administration tried to block $8 billion in grants that had already been previously allocated by Congress for research, they say that's unlawful. They stopped that. That continues because the state's attorneys generals, and that's the other hero in this, because I also talked about the nonprofits and the unions and the organizations that have been doing these things and filing these lawsuits. The other heroes are the state's attorney generals representing the interests of a lot of the blue states have been filing these lawsuits. And they said they're the ones who was just like these grants. If you study something that helps sickle cell patients, that's a longitudinal study. And that disease, the research from that could also help with diseases that aren't necessarily impacting black people. And then what about like the ALS that impacts white people? You're going to stop those funding too? No, because you're racist. Anyway, I digress. So those funding continues. So the challenge was just to the block of grants that impact where they're saying we're reaching out to diverse communities, like the teaching and training sort of stuff like that. So that's what was challenged. And the judge, a Ronald Reagan appointed judge, Young, said this is so racist. He looked at it. He's like, I've never seen racism so much. Like all of these things y'all doing is politically racist. This came from a Ronald Reagan appointee. He said, my 40 years on the bench, I've never seen racism like this. That's the judge that the Supreme Court has overruled after he was affirmed on the next level. The Supreme Court is stopping his decision where he looked at the research, he looked at the stuff, and they're just saying that, no, we're going to pause. We're going to stay that. Now, it wasn't a complete pause because Chief Justice Roberts, interestingly enough, sided along with the liberal justice. It was a 5-4 decision because Chief Justice Roberts signed on along with Elena Kagan, Justice Sotomayor, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Interesting. Now, Amy Coney Barrett, she flipped. It's a 5-4 on partially because she joined in with those guys in the part where Donald Trump tried to say, well, this is going to be the law going forward. And she says, no, it can't be the law going forward because there's a whole process for you to make that the law going forward under the Administrative Procedure Act, which you got to build a record, open for notice and comment for the public. You got to bring stats and facts and research to make that the law going forward. So going forward, you can't do that going forward. You got to do the process. So she joined on. So future going, it doesn't impact. But past going stuff, it was paused. Again, they didn't overrule it. They just said, we're going to let him continue to block those grants while the game continues. So they're just like, we're just overruling the flag on the play. So that's what it is. And that's what they've always done. They've given a few substantive wins, but this still is a win because I used to try to couch it as not real wins. I used to try to couch them as not real wins because they're just procedural, but now I've changed my mind. I'm eating crow because the impact of the letting them continue is damaging and destructive, and it's terrible. It's not good. So I hope that's helpful. If not, comment below. Let's talk below. Share this video. Each one teach one. JJ Legal. See you soon.